March there's a lot of duality, I think, happening in the month of March. Something about the moons coming into signs that have to do with dual things. So the next moon, something in Pisces, and then the moon after that, something in Libra, right? So if you look at Gemini as the twins, and with Pisces, there's the two fish, and then with Libra, there's the scales, right? So there's a lot of duality there. What we're going to be doing in our practice today is kind of exploring a little bit how is it feeling, right? Because our bodies, we perceive our bodies as being fairly symmetrical, but as you know, being a yoga practitioner, it doesn't always feel exactly the same one side versus another. So we're going to really kind of fine tune our awareness in our physical practice today to really kind of check in and try to feel from different perspectives what might be happening in different poses, right? So we're going to be really fine tuning it that way. Anyway, I hope that any of that was helpful to you. Just, I don't know if you had any kind of a shift or something that happened yesterday, but if you're just, kind of feeling kind of pulled in different directions and it's a little challenging to make a decision about which way to go about things, just know that there's probably some influences at work that might be contributing to that. All right. So before we start to move today, we're just going to chant the sound of Om over and over again, just a few times here. All right. So let's get centered for a moment. Just settle into your seat. Notice your breathing. And even take a moment to fine tune the awareness of how you're pulling breath into the back of your lungs. So do you feel like, is there a dominant lung? Is one side feel like it fills up with breath faster than the other? And you don't have to know the answer. You just feel it. See if you can fine tune your awareness into your back so completely that you can feel subtly which one inflates more quickly. And now bring your awareness to the front of your body and feel the cycle of your breath moving and how that works in the front of your body. When you inhale, which direction does your sternum go, up or down? There's no right or wrong, just observe. And with that going on, what happens with the abdomen? Does it inflate a little bit? Does it feel like it starts to look down a little bit or look up a little bit as it inflates? And now, with that kind of fine-tuned awareness, ask yourself the 3 questions. How am I doing on the physical level? Really listen to your body for an answer. How are you doing on the mental level? Do your best to be the observer here. Step outside of your head for a moment or two. Notice, how's it been this morning? And then how are you doing on the emotional level? Again, without any judgment, let all that stuff go. The more fine-tuned and the more in the moment you can be, the more clear transformation can come, and shifts that we are looking for can occur fairly quickly. Transformation is afoot. And with that awareness, bring your hands to prayer position in front of your heart. Just let your thumbs rest at your heart center. Sit nice and tall in your spine and just drop your chin just slightly down. So you can feel the spine lift, the base of the skull lift as the chin drops a little bit. And with your hands in Anjali Mudra, we're going to chant the sound of Om. Here we go. And just let your breathing just resume. Feel free to hold any intention that feels particularly right for you at this time. And when you feel ready, let your eyes open. Namaste, everybody. Thanks for coming. Okay, lovely. So we're going to start on our hands and our knees. And we'll start with a little good old-fashioned cat and cow. So as soon as you get yourself set up, feel free to start to move. And if you have been moving a little bit, settle to your neutral spine. And as you inhale, lift your head and lift your sitting bones. And notice which one moves faster. And then as you exhale and round into your back, notice which happens faster, either the belly pulling up or the head dropping down. Again, just noticing. Back and forth to your own breath rhythm. Just a couple more rounds here. And at the end of your exhale, settle into a nice neutral table position. Walk your hands forward just an inch or two and come on up to your first down dog. And as you look back at your feet, notice if you have a slightly different viewpoint of each foot. Is there one foot that tends to turn out just a little bit? Or is there one foot that tends to be a little more forward of the other one? So when you come into your stance, maybe your right toe is a little closer to your head than your left one is. Right? So just notice the difference between how you have your feet placed in this downward dog. And just continue to breathe as you're observing. And let's set the knees down. Come right into a cow pose. So inhale, lift your gaze, lift your sitting bones again. And then exhale, come on back up to your down dog. Now let your eyes be really kind of soft, so you're just almost like your feet are out of focus. And then bring your awareness to your hands and how your hands are pressing into the mat. See if you can notice if you are pressing down more in one part of one hand than you are in the other. So maybe focus on the index finger knuckle first. See if the weight feels even in both hands right there. How about the thumbs? How are your thumbs pressing down? The length of your index fingers, is one lighter than the other? And then go ahead and set your knees back down. Inhale back into a cow pose. So inhale looking forward. And exhale, we're going to come back up to down dog. Now roll up onto the balls of the feet and lift the heels. And exhale and push the heels down toward the floor. And roll back up on the balls of the feet, lifting the heels. And exhale and let the heels drop a little bit. Now at the end of your exhale, we're going to go ahead and step the feet up toward the hands and come to your first standing forward fold. So come on forward with the feet. Set your feet as mindfully as you care to. And bow forward for your first Uttanasana. And again, just notice here as you're in the pose for a few moments, is one side of the, one leg tighter in the hamstrings than the other? You know we come into the pose and obviously it's early in the day. We're feeling the hamstrings as we take a forward bend. But can you notice the subtlety between the sides? Don't feel like you have to straighten your legs. Just observe one side versus the other. Now go ahead and bend your knees. Slide the hands up the shins to the knees and come to your skier stance for a nice neutral spine for a moment or two here. Notice the weight in your heels. Is it even, or is one heel kind of bearing most of the weight? How about the weight in your hands as your hands are on your knees here? Is there a lot of weight in the hands? Again, is one heavier than the other? Do you feel more muscular energy in one of your arms versus the other, just because of how you have your hands on your legs? And then come all the way up to standing. So as you come up, we'll take a mountain pose stance here. Isn't it amazing how much there is to observe when you really start to let your attention focus on these things? Every part of your body is having a different experience in your pose, right? So the top of your hands is having an experience while the bottom side, the palms, are having an experience pressing into the floor, right? So we don't even think about that. So we're going to continue this exploration. And this really helps us to bring our attention into the now, into the present moment. And we need some attention this way. So hug your midline. Inhale, take your arms up and over your head. Exhale, come into a forward fold. Inhale, lengthen halfway forward for Ardha Uttanasana. And exhale and fold in. And one more Ardha Uttanasana. Inhale, lengthen halfway forward. Now notice when you're in your half forward fold, what is happening around your neck? Are your shoulders squinching up toward the ears, or can you pull the shoulder blades down the back a little bit? See if you can get a little more energy extending through your crown in the pose, and notice how that affects everything. How do your hamstrings respond when you pull the shoulder blades down the back in your half forward fold? And then exhale and fold back in Uttanasana. Step right back with the right foot into a high lunge. And set your feet, because we will be taking the hands off of the floor. Make sure your feet are wide enough apart laterally so you feel balanced, and then bring the hands up to the front knee. So just notice that as soon as you bring your torso into a more vertical position, what happens in the legs? How much desire is there in your right leg to come down toward the floor or for that knee to bend? Feel that. And then let's counter that desire. Push down into the left foot and lift up in the inner right thigh. Push through your inner right heel and feel the stretch that comes with that without really changing the position of your left hip at all. And breathe into that. Then let's bring the hands to the floor. Go ahead and step to a down dog. And shift forward to your first plank pose of the morning. So come into your plank. Look at your hands. Are your hands a mirror image of one another? Or is one turned out more? Is one more forward than the other? And if you do try to even your hands or make them look a little bit more symmetrical, then does that change how it feels in your elbows or your shoulders or your wrists? All right, and we're gonna go ahead and come to the floor now. So bend the elbows and come to your belly. Let's just come right into a cobra pose. So lift the shoulders and roll them back a little bit and just take your time. Come back down and we're gonna do that shoulder loop again. Pull the shoulder heads up and then roll them back as you come up a little higher and then lower down. Let's do one more of those. Shrug the shoulder heads up. Pull the shoulders and the chest up. Pull the shoulder blades down the back a little bit. See how this is. How does it feel in the arms and the elbows? And then lower yourself down. Curl your toes under, come on back up to down dog. And at the end of your exhale, go ahead and step or hop back to forward fold. See how your feet landed. Right, so before you correct your foot position, which one ended up being more forward than the other? And then bow. Feel into the back of the hamstrings again. So how is this feeling now? Is it shifting or changing at all? We know things change by the end of practice, but we just don't necessarily feel the minutia of the change happening throughout the practice, right? So feel, how is this starting to change now? Now bend your knees, swing your arms forward and come up into a chair pose. Move your hip creases back from the inside and the outside at the same rate. So push back and push back. If you push back at different rates, then it's either going to internally or externally rotate the legs, and you might find your knees either coming in or out, right? So you try to move back equally, like you've got a belt pushing back right in the hip creases here. I know we've been here for a bit, but we're waking the legs up, we're warming up. Now go ahead and come on up to standing and release the arms. Take your hands into a clasp behind you. Now what I'd like to do with this, we are going to be lifting the arms and coming into a forward fold. But one of the things that can happen is that we end up having the hands perpendicular to the forearms like this. And then we cut off the possibility of prana movement in the wrists, right? So can you bring the heels of the palms in closer to one another so that there's a clear channel? The carpal tunnel is open. And then with the hands in this position, lift the shoulder heads, roll them back. And you can widen your feet if it's a little much for the hamstrings, or come forward from here. Lifting the arms, letting your head go. How is it different with the arms lifted as opposed to how it was when you had your hands down? How is this feeling more deep in the legs? Do you feel the stretch moving down a little bit more fully, even into the calves? And then bend your knees again and bring your hands to the floor. Step back with your left foot into a high lunge. Make sure you have lateral distance between your feet and bring your hands up to your front knee. Wow, okay, and then bring your torso forward again. And then slowly bring your torso back up to a more vertical position. Feel how this is affecting the front of your left hip flexors and thigh. Come forward. And another time, bring your torso up. Make this back leg really strong. Can you resist the floor away with the right foot so that you can get more power and lift in the inner left thigh? The inner left thigh internally rotates the leg a little bit. Push through the inner heel as well and lengthen that out. So you feel that whole leg is super, super strong and powerful. Pull your belly in and up. And just be in that duality, right? Pushing down with the front foot, lifting up with the back leg. And then bring the hands to the floor. Step back to downward dog again. Couple more gentle presses through the heels just to notice how the calves are doing, if things are changing there. And again, the position of the feet. I'm noticing today for the first time that my right toes are slightly forward of my left one. So interesting, didn't know that. And so sometimes there's a great deal of value in doing your practice with a mirror next to you. If you just can totally get past the whether or not you're having a good hair day kind of thing, it's really nice to be able to observe your own idiosyncrasies, right? It's very informative. All right, so now from here, please lift your right leg up behind you. Bend the knee, opening up through the hip. As you push down and forward with your hands, pull back in the outer left hip crease and root down a little more through your left heel. Just be with that. Notice where your heel goes in relationship to the floor. You're not trying to get it to the floor, but just notice what stretch is available right now in your leg and your calves and your Achilles right there. Now on your exhale, bring your right foot forward and through into a high lunge. Spin your back heel down to the floor and come up to side angle stretch with the right elbow on the thigh, left arm alongside of the ear. Now, as we're coming into a pose like this, we tend to have all the focus kind of in, well, how are my legs doing? Am I having this thigh stay open there? But what's happening in this case, what's happening in your inner left shoulder? Are you pulling that up towards your ear so there's some scrunching around the neck? Or could you pull the head of that left arm bone back and slide the left shoulder blade down and make more space around your neck? Just focus on some other part of the pose that you don't normally think about. That's what we're looking at today. And then go ahead and release the hands to the floor. Pick up your back heel. Step to plank pose. Make your hands a mirror image of one another. Hug toward the midline with your feet so you feel some adduction in your inner thighs. And then roll your inner thighs up toward the ceiling a little bit. So you start to slightly exaggerate your lumbar curve. And then from there, pull your low belly in and up. So you try to keep the back of the pelvis open as you engage your core muscles. And then we'll lower to the floor. Bend the elbows alongside of the rib cage and slowly come down. All right, let's take Shalabhasana this time. So you're going to take your hands back behind you into a clasp. Remember how we clasped the hands when we were standing up earlier? Try that here. So you bring the heels of the palms closer to one another so that you keep the wrists open, and then lift the shoulders up, lift the chest, and push back through your hands. Breathing. Notice how you're bearing weight on your hip bones. Are you having a tendency to lean from one side versus the other? How about the tops of the feet? How are they meeting the floor? How about your neck? Are you lifting your chin up so high that there's kind of some tension or compression in your neck? Then go ahead and release. Just rest your chin on your hands. I kept you there for a while. Now with your eyes closed, just feel your heart rate. All right, slide the hands back alongside of the chest. Come on up to downward facing dog. And at the end of your exhale, hop or step to your forward fold. Bowing over the legs. Open the palms. Inhale, take your arms up and overhead. Palms together, slide your hands to heart center. Bend your knees and sit your hips back. Take your arms up alongside of the ears again, coming into chair pose. Now bend the elbows out to the sides. Try to pull the bottom tips of the shoulder blades down the back and tip them into the back of the rib cage. So exaggerate a little bit of a back bend here. Now bring your arms forward. Cross the right elbow over the left for eagle arms. And then move the hips back, bow forward, and see if you can straighten your legs and slide your fingertips down toward the floor. So eagle arms in a forward fold. And as the fingertips move toward the floor, feel how this shows up in your upper back. Feel what happens with the scapula. Can you feel that rotation? So bring the elbows up towards your belly and feel how the shoulder blades go back to something a little more comfortable. And then exhale and slide the fingertips down toward the floor again and feel the scapula rotate and how that affects the muscles. Now bend your knees, bring yourself back up halfway. Unravel the arms and go right to the second side, left over right, eagle arms. Bow forward again, straightening the legs and sliding the fingertips toward the floor. So immediately going to the second side and noticing what's there. What happened? What changed? Can you feel now, bring the elbows up towards your navel again and feel the scapula rotate on your back. And then exhale and slide the fingertips down toward the floor. Now notice your legs. Is there one thigh that you're holding some muscular energy and is the other one a little more relaxed? Can you pull both thigh muscles up and away from the knees at the same rate? Pull your abdomen in and up. How does that affect the stretch of the hamstrings? And then bend your knees, unravel the arms, plant the hands, and step right back to downward facing dog. All right, so let's lift the left leg up behind you. Bend the knee, open up through the hip, and push the hands forward. Pull back in the outer right hip crease. See if you can root down through your right heel. How is it on this side? How are the calves and the Achilles on your right leg? Does your heel come as close to the floor as it did on the other side? It's not a judgment, it's an observation. Now on your exhale, go ahead and swing the left foot forward and through. Finding your high lunge for a moment and then spinning the right foot down to find side angle stretch. Left elbow on the thigh, right arm up alongside of the ear. So find the legs, find the position so you feel secure in your foundation, and then bring your awareness to what your right shoulder is doing. So is it creeping up toward your head? Right, so pull the head of your right arm bone back a little bit and then the shoulder blade down a little bit and see if it just gives your whole torso a little bit more space to be in the pose and open in the pose so you don't feel any kind of tension in the neck. It's not about, how much distance can I get between my back foot and my fingertips here. You want to get integrated and make it as straight a line as you can so that there's a clear path for energy to move from your outer right foot to all the way out to your right fingertips. All right, and then go ahead and spin the hands down again. Pick up your back heel, we'll step to plank. Seems like we've been in a lot of planks. So here we are again. Look at your hands, situate your hands so that they look pretty even. Now we're going to come up on our fists, if that works for you in your hands. So make a fist with the thumbs pointing forward and see how that is. It changes the foundation utterly and completely, but the relationship in the arms is different, right? Your wrists are open. Your shoulders might feel different because of the rotation of the hands. There's an external rotation. I actually feel some ease in my upper arms and certainly in my wrists. Now set your knees down. Resituate your hands back to how they were before you came to your fists, and then lower down to your belly again. Now we're going to take another cobra pose. So slide the hands slightly back, spread the fingers, shrug the shoulders forward, lift up, and roll the shoulder heads back. And pull back in the hands. Pretend somebody has got a foot at your mid-upper back, and they're trying to push forward, and you're pulling back in the shoulders in response to that. Make sure your abdomen is super strong. And then lower down. Just cross your hands again, rest your chin on your hands. Notice your heart rate. And now take your left arm out in front of you, thumb pointing up, edge of the hand on the floor. Bring your right arm alongside of you and lift your right leg straight up. So try to lift the inner edge of the leg and the outer edge of the leg at the same rate so that your leg doesn't externally or internally rotate. It's lifting up nice and evenly. Now lift your chest, lift both arms. Hug in toward the midline a little bit with your inner thighs. Push down into the top of your left foot and see if you can lift your right leg up a little higher. Again, try to control any kind of rotation in your right leg so that you're square in the hips, keeping the hip points evenly bearing your weight in your pelvis. Now bend your right leg and see if you can take a hold of the foot. Coming into a half bow. Keep the thighs parallel. And then go ahead and release it. Come down, how to rest. Chin on your hands, close your eyes and observe. Notice your heart rate. And notice some place that you feel it that you didn't really know you could actually feel your heart rate before. Can you feel it in your throat? Okay, other side. Take the right arm out in front of you with the edge of the hand down and the thumb up. Bring your left arm alongside of you and then lift your left leg up really mindfully. So the inner edge and the outer edge of the leg lift at the same rate. Keep the leg nice and long and straight and then lift your chest and lift your arms. Reach in opposite directions with the arms, but don't throw your shoulders out of alignment. Push down into the top of your right foot. So try to have all the toenails pressing down evenly as you're lifting that left leg. Engage your abdomen. Breathing. Now bend your left leg. Can you reach back for the foot? Push the foot against the hand as you come into a half bow. You don't have to do that part if it just isn't in your repertoire right now. And release the leg. Rest your chin on your hands. Close your eyes again. Notice any sensations you have in your lower back as a result of doing that work. Notice how your knees are resting on the floor. Is there one leg that's slightly more externally rotated so you feel more weight toward the inner knee? And is there one knee that feels like it's more squarely on the floor? Just notice. Again, all of these different things have so much to tell us about the intricacies of how our bodies are experiencing each one of these poses. All right, let's go ahead and bring the hands back alongside of the chest. Press up to table pose. And then from this table pose, we're just going to sit back in a nice child's pose. So widen the knees, let the toes touch. Sit the hips back and have your arms out in front of you in pranam. Now go ahead and set your elbows at your shoulder distance, bring your hands to prayer, and then bring your hands back behind your head. Become aware of how the back of your arms are feeling here. Are you feeling any stretch in the triceps, in the side ribs? Are your sitting bones hovering above your heels a little bit? So make sure that you don't want to have your sitting bones and your buttocks kind of jammed on your heels. I want you to have your arms forward enough so that you're just barely touching the heels. So there's a sense of how the weight can shift a little bit in your buttocks here. Now, as you exhale in this position, pull your abdomen. You're going to let me clarify that. Push your low ribs down as you engage your abdomen. You inhale and you can feel the sternum almost lift a little bit, and as you exhale, pull the ribs down again and notice what that affects. Do you feel the stretch in your side ribs deepen as you do this? And then let's release. Bring the hands to the floor. Come on up to table pose. And let's come on back up to down dog. Roll your toes under, lift your knees. All right, now please lift your left leg up behind you. Lift the leg and keep it straight. Spread the toes and let the leg externally rotate. Take it as high as you care to take it, and try not to let your pelvis totally look over to the left. Try to keep a lift up in that outer right hip as you're lifting the left leg. On your exhale, now bring your left foot forward and through, high lunge position. Spin your right heel to the floor and then situate your left hand wherever you want to have it to come into triangle pose on this left side. So either the hands outside the foot, it could be up on the ankle or the shin, or you can grab a block, and then start to pull back in the outer left hip crease and straighten the left leg. Keep your body in this forward fold over the leg for a moment or two. Back foot is spun down. Try to square your hips a little bit more toward the floor. How does that affect the hamstrings in your left leg? Now, with all this situated here, trying to keep the hips square to the floor, that left hand stays on the floor or your block or wherever it is, and then turn your torso open, but try to keep your hips looking down. So often we come into our poses, if we're doing a practice more quickly, we can come into poses with our habits completely intact. And we're not aware of how much we can get out of a pose when we work really deliberately and slowly. So the twist can be much more effective if we really focus on this, keeping the hips trying to look down as the torso opens up. And in your triangle pose, focus on something else that you don't really think about too much when you're in triangle pose. Right? So sometimes we're all about the front leg. Can you be about your shoulders? Is it possible to have your arms be a straight line from your left wrist to your right wrist? So a nice vertical trajectory all the way up. And then go ahead and spin the right hand back down, bend back into the left knee and pick up your right heel so you find your high lunge again. Let's plant the hands, step back to downward facing dog. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So let's lift the right leg up. Don't bend the knee, just lift the leg, externally rotate it, spread the toes, but don't turn your pelvis to look to the right. Try to square your pelvis to the floor as you're lifting your right leg. Also notice how it affects your left shoulder when you lift your right leg up so high. Try to keep an even lift in the shoulders, an even press down through the foundation of the hands. And then on your exhale, let's bring this right foot forward and through. Find your high lunge position, spin the back heel down to the floor, and then we'll set ourselves up to slowly come into this triangle pose to the right. So right hand goes wherever it needs to go. And as we start to approach it, pull back in your outer right hip to straighten the leg. Work in the hamstrings. Notice how even that pushing back in the outer right hip crease, you can get super light through the big toe mound, simply because all the weight rolls to the edge of the foot. Try to keep your big toe mound down as you pull that hip crease back. And then bring a little more focus to turning your left hip point down. And then take your time to turn your torso open and extend your left arm up. And as soon as you turn the torso open, right, of course it affects how the hamstrings and inner thigh feel. Right? We always know that. We always feel that in our pose. But again, sometimes we're in such a hurry to get there or perform the pose or to take the shape of the pose that we're missing all these opportunities. So keep that outer left hip crease drawn back as you open up into your full wingspan. And again, just notice, can you look down at your right hand and can you make a straight line from your right wrist to your left wrist? Feel into the shoulders so that you know whether or not you're using the same actions in the shoulders to create this sense of vertical line through your wingspan here. You know, sometimes in triangle pose, the head drops. Right? Remember, your neck is part of your spine. You can keep a nice clear path of energy from your tailbone to your crown if your head lifts a little bit in your triangle pose. All right, now let's look down again. Spin the hands down, bend into the front knee. Pick up your back heel and step back to downward facing dog. All right, so now we're gonna do flip the dog. So make sure you don't have too much around you as we're gonna lift the, we'll lift the left hand first and we'll pivot to the right. So take all the weight onto the right hand. You're gonna lift your left leg and bend the knee. Now as you start shifting the weight onto your right foot, you're gonna start to rotate the foot and then set your left foot down and take your left arm up alongside of the ear. Try to parallel your feet in your pose. And if this is not in your repertoire, you can simply just be on your hands, just with the leg lifted.
If you can do this, parallel your feet the best way you can. Lots of external rotation in your supporting arm. And then see if you can slowly come back to your three-legged down dog, and then set your left foot back down on the floor. All right, other side. Lifting the right leg. Bend the knee. Start to get lighter in your right hand as you shift the weight to the left hand, and then pivot on your left foot. Bring the right foot down. Reach the right arm up alongside the ear. Make sure you're externally rotating your supporting arm big time. And if there's any part of this that feels like, yeah, I don't really want to do this, then please do come out of the pose. And if you're here, can you slow motion? Come on back, bringing the right hand down, lifting the left leg into the right leg into your three-legged dog, and then set the foot down. Set your knees down. And again, we'll have a rest in a child's pose. Let the big toes touch. Sit the hips back. And then let's just bring the arms alongside of the body and let the shoulders just round forward gently. Notice how your forehead is meeting the mat. See if you can situate your forehead so that, if anything, the flesh of the forehead is being pushed up a little bit and it's not forcing down. So you don't have like a knitted brow or a monobrow kind of situation. You've got more of a lifting action in your forehead flesh. And just breathe here and observe how your body is responding to this kind of attention and awareness today. And slowly bring yourself on up to a seat. Okay, we're going to come onto our backs now. We're going to come you don't need any tools, just come right onto your back. And we're going to come right into eye of the needle pose on your back. So cross the right ankle over the left knee. Again, it's one of those poses that we do so frequently that we may just kind of take it for granted, or we don't really think about the minutia, right? So as you're in this position now, go ahead and reach for the back of your left leg and draw your legs in. Spread your toes. Now, what happened to the direction of your legs when you started to bring the legs toward your chest? Right, so when your foot's on the floor, you want to start with your left heel pretty much right in line with your left sitting bone. And then when you lift up, your thigh bone appears to go straight up toward vertical. What will tend to happen because of the tightness in our hips is we end up having the legs maybe migrate over to the side. So I see that a lot in students. Check it out. Tuck your chin a little bit and look at your legs and make sure that from your perspective, your vantage point, your left thigh didn't migrate over to the right. Right? Try to keep your leg from your perspective so that it looks like your knee's pointing straight up toward the ceiling. And then draw the legs in from there. And for some of you, it's like, no, that's pretty much where I have it all the time, and you won't notice any difference or change. For some of you, you're going to have a big change. There will be a big difference there. And then as you're drawing the legs towards you, close your eyes and feel how you're bearing weight in the back of your pelvis. And if you have no weight on the back of the pelvis. If there's no weight on the pelvis, then go ahead and back off of the pulling of the legs a little bit until you can settle some weight into the back of the pelvis. And then try to keep it there and draw your legs closer to you and see what happens. But probably for all of us, we're going to notice that we have more weight on one side of the back of the pelvis than the other. So what would you need to do to try to find evenness there. You might have to ground. Like for me, I can definitely feel it's perfectly natural in this pose because we're stretching the left or the right hip here. It's perfectly natural for the back of the pelvis on the right to be a little bit lifted, right? So root down a little bit more. First, push down through the sitting bones a little more evenly and see if you can get the weight even on the back of the pelvis. Just notice what the pose has to offer you then once you ground in such a deliberate and mindful and balanced way. What does the quality of the stretch do? How does that change for you? If you want more, you can always draw your thighs towards yourself. But again, if you're keeping your attention in how you're bearing weight in your lower back body, then make sure that you are as evenly grounded as you can be. And then let's go ahead and release. Set your right foot down, cross your left ankle over your right knee. And now before you even reach for the back of the right thigh, make sure that you didn't set your right foot over in the middle of the mat, right? See if you can bring the leg in so that from your vantage point, it looks like the right knee is pointing straight up toward the ceiling. And draw the legs towards you. So clearly we're working the hips here. And as you do that, notice how your body might have shifted its position. Did your left or your right knee rather migrate toward the middle? And as you draw the leg in towards yourself, how are you bearing weight in the back of the pelvis and the lower back? Just close your eyes and see if you can feel it. So take some of this attention away from what your eyes are doing and bring that focus within your physical body. Like you can see from within yourself. How are you bearing weight over on, especially on the left side of your pelvis now? Spread your toes. And if you feel like you are able to get the weight even on the back of the pelvis, then maybe you bring your legs in closer to you. But try to do that without letting your bottom lift up off of the floor or move the weight further up your spine. All right, and then we'll go ahead and release. Set the foot down and uncross the legs. Okay, let's see what we got here. Let's roll to the side and come on up to a seat. We're going to do a very, very, very fine tuning awareness exercise now from a seated position. So please take a blanket. Don't skimp on this. Make sure you have what you need to sit on and make sure you have what you need to be warm enough. It's still a little chilly in the room. And now that we've been doing this practice with this much focus and this much awareness, we're going to do some exercises with the eyes here. So, when you find your seat, close your eyes, sit tall, keep your head exactly where it is. And we're simply going to move the eyes as if you're looking to the right. So just slowly let your eyes kind of migrate over to the right, but keep your head facing forward with your eyes closed. You're just simply changing the direction of where your eyes would be looking. And then bring them back to center. And then same thing to the left. Move your eyes to the left, but don't move your head. Keeping your eyelids closed. And then bring your eyes back to center. Same thing, keep the head still, lift your eyes to look up. Don't let your head tip up. And then bring the eyes back to center.
And then drop your eyes down, but don't drop your chin. And bring your eyes back to center. Now relax your eyes. Bring your awareness to the back of your eyes. So we're always clearly looking through the lenses at the front of the eyeball. Bring your awareness to the back of your eyeballs so that you kind of soften your inner focus. Just letting your eyes be in a neutral position, just so you can relax those muscles. Now keep your focus at the back of your eyes, and then again, take your eyes over to the right. And notice what happens to the back of the eyes when you take your gaze over to the right. Again, head stays still. Well, the back of the eyes move to the left. They rotate to the left a little bit, right? As the gaze, the front of the eyes go to the right. You feel that, right? So it's just a natural way that shifts. But with the awareness at the back of the eyes, you go, oh, the back of my eyes are having a completely different experience. Now, bring your eyes back to center. And same thing with the lids closed. Have your focus and awareness on the back of your eyeballs and shift your inner gaze over to the left. So you can feel that rotation of the spheres of your eyeballs shifting as your inner gaze turns to look to the left. And then bring the eyes back to center. Let your focus now fall in a very comfortable place, wherever that is. Maybe just below the horizon line. And then again, bring your focus to the back of your eyeballs if you can. It also gives you a little more distance. It gives you a little more space. It's kind of nice to have a physical place to focus that takes your attention away from, because we're spending so much time looking at our computers and our devices, and now we're doing yoga online, so we have devices that we're looking at, right? How do we give our eyes a little bit of a break and create a little bit of spaciousness there? Well, it helps to have a different awareness of how your eyes are actually functioning physically in this body, right? So bringing this focus back behind the eyes and letting your eyes simply relax there. So now bring your awareness to how your sitting bones or your bottom is meeting whatever it is that you're sitting on. And again, because we have, we always have this twin thing going on in the body. There's one side and there's the other side. How are they reflecting one another right now? So how is your right sitting bone resting on the floor, and how is your left sitting bone resting? Is there a little bit of a conundrum on one side? And if you feel there's a lot of lightness on one side, then give yourself a little bit more height. You could double up your blanket a little bit if you like. But even if you subtly feel a difference, like really let your focus go to how much weight you have on each sitting bone right now. Do you discern even the tiniest bit of difference? Now, feeling the sitting bones on the floor, can you picture your whole pelvis? You don't have to have a master's degree in anatomy to do this. Just imagine what your pelvis looks like and see the whole pelvis sitting up and resting on the sitting bones. So it's kind of like getting behind the eyes. There's another perspective here of what is settling, what is providing this weight. And then even here with this awareness of your pelvis being, having the sitting bones attached there, then can you feel whether or not one of your hip, the top of your iliac crest, the top of your hip bones or points there, right? The biggest part that, like, when you're in your bathing suit, the part of you that might be kind of protruding there, is there one versus the other that's a little bit more forward? Is there a natural twist? If you have a little scoliosis, you may know this about yourself. But typically, we're not perfectly symmetrical. We don't have everything perfectly fine because of all the attachments in the whole pelvic girdle. There's a lot of stuff that can go on, and when certain things are tight and certain things aren't, it's going to affect the angle of your pelvis. So can you sit and feel, is one of your hip points more forward than the other? And if this is just getting too subtle to find a difference, it's okay. Let go of any judgment about yourself, about your ability to discern, about whether or not your pelvis is perfectly square or not. Let go of all of that and just simply be in this awareness. It's just awareness. That's really all we're doing here. Now just situate the torso as it comes up and out of the pelvis. Situate your torso so it feels at its lightest. So if you're slightly tipped forward, there's going to be more effort. If you're slightly tipped back, there's going to be more effort. You might even just move forward and back within a range of like an inch, and see if you can find a really subtle place where you feel like, oh, actually, if I sit right there, I'm even heavier in my sitting bones and I feel lighter in my upper body. So see if you can find that point for yourself. Please, 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 eyes closed. And now we're going to have just a couple of minutes of silence in this seated position, and then we'll take our Shavasana. Okay, so that's about 2 minutes. If you'd like to make yourself comfortable on your back for Shavasana, feel free to do that. If you really feel great in your meditation seat and feel very still, feel free to stay here for the next 5 minutes or so. All right, so please bring your awareness now back to your body. Feel how wonderful it is to let your breath deepen. And if you're in Shavasana, feel free to bring some movement back to your hands, your feet. And then please take your time to roll to your side and come on back up to your seated position. So if you'll bring your hands to Anjali Mudra once you come back to your seat. I send so much deep love and gratitude to all of my teachers. Particularly grateful for a practice that really brings us into a super, super quiet place. This kind of awareness, this kind of minutia, it's really sweet. So thank you for doing this practice today. And I hope this serves you well as you move through your day. Om Shanti. Namaste.